During the 2023 Game Awards on December 7th of 2023, fans were surprised when Embark Studios announced the release of their new free-to-play game called The Finals. Immediately, people flocked to this new game, testing it out for themselves to see if this game would make it into the Gaming Hall of Fame and stand a chance against the titans that have ruled the FPS genre for ages. And, well, a bunch of content creators and new players have mentioned that this game will stand the testament of time, wondering if this game has the potential to kill other big FPS games. This specific inquiry caught my attention as someone who plays FPS games, and I think it's time to have a definitive answer to the question so many people are asking. Is The Finals the ultimate FPS killer? Hello fellow contestants, my name is Schlurpa, the announcer of today's event, and today we're looking into The Finals, what it is, the statistics, and as per usual, my own opinions on the subject matter. So, after playing the game for about 3 or so weeks, I have a good grasp on the game, and now I've decided to hop on the train of content and take a leap of faith into talking about the game. If you like this video, there will be a card at the end that'll take you to one just like it. But for now, let's hop right into it. The Finals is a free-to-play first-person shooter that revolves around people competing in a televised virtual combat game show. There are 3 different types of game modes in the Finals: Cash Out, Bank It, and Tournament. Cash Out is a 3 vs 3 vs 3 game mode that revolves around opening certain vaults worth 10,000 coins and transferring them to a specific cash out location somewhere else on the map. At this cash out location, the team that started the cash out must defend the point from the other 2 teams. These teams can steal the cash out before the timer expires, claiming ownership over the cash out and in turn the potential payout. The way to win the game relies on the first team to successfully complete 2 cash outs. Bank It, one of the other game modes, consists of 4 teams of 3 that fight for various caches across the map that are filled with coins. The characters who collect these caches carry the coins on their person, which are dropped upon their death. Additionally, characters who are eliminated drop a currency even if they are not holding any originally. The cash coins, as well as the coins players drop upon elimination, can be turned in at locations that appear around the map periodically, allowing teams to bank their coins. The first team to successfully bank 40,000 coins wins. The tournament game mode is a modified version of the cash out game mode, which occurs in consecutive rounds with a bracket of 16 teams. Instead of being the first team to complete 2 cash outs, tournament rounds are time limited and teams compete to get the most currency before the timer expires. In contrast to the quick play cash out variant, each consecutive vault in tournaments holds more currency and the teams lose 30% of their total funds if all team members are eliminated. Unlike quick play modes with unlimited respawns, tournaments limit the number of respawns available to force teams to focus on surviving and manually reviving teammates. In the initial rounds, 4 teams compete in each game, with the top 2 teams progressing. The final round sees the top 2 teams going head-to-head to determine the ultimate winner. Being optimistic about the game, I'd like to talk about the statistics of the Finals. And for a game that's been out for just over a month, I have to say it's doing pretty well. Currently, the Finals has averaged approximately 106,000 players in the last 30 days and 120,000 in December of last year. Not to mention, the game has peaked at over 242,000 players. The game has slowly been losing players since its initial launch back in December of 2023, going from around a 100,000 daily average to an 80,000 daily average. Despite that being a 20,000 player loss, the game remains consistent in its player base. A large portion of gaming content creators have added the Finals to their collection of games. Apex Legends players Asu and It's Timmy, Cisco player Shroud, and many other professional esports players gave the game a try and all seemed to like it, going as far as to grind the competitive portion of the game. With these large creators making content out the game, viewership for the game has skyrocketed on platforms like Twitch and YouTube. Statistically, an increase in viewership more often than not leads to an increase in the player base, as an interest in the subject material goes up with the positive attention the subject material gains. Alternatively, negative attention would lead to a decrease in the player base. With the Finals, content creators generated a large number of views on the content released, with the majority of them being positive. I'm sure many people have seen this question asked in a ton of thumbnails and YouTube video titles, especially in the Apex Legends community. And I too asked the same question at first. The Finals is a game with infinite promise and the ability to improve far beyond our expectations. So let me ask, is the Finals the FPS killer? To put it simply, statistically, the answer is no. Now, I'm not saying the game doesn't have promise. I can assure you this game has a lot more promise than I initially believed. However, we have to look at the other FPS contenders, not only on Steam, but other platforms as well. According to Steam charts, Counter-Strike 2, PUBG Battlegrounds, Apex Legends, Team Fortress 2, and Rust are the top 5 most played FPS games. In fact, the Final lies at number 8 on the chart, which isn't bad, but the game has to compete with the titans that have ruled over the leaderboard for years. And let's be real, CSGO is never dying, people will always play Apex Legends even if they hate the game, and Team Fortress 2 is Team Fortress 2. This doesn't even talk about the games like Valorant or people who play Overwatch 2, games played outside of the Steam catalog. Even with the iffy player bases those games have, they've cemented themselves into their spots. And that isn't even talking about the difference in the average number of players, or the peak. Let's compare the finals to Apex, since that's one of the more covered games here. Compared to the launch and the number of average monthly players, Apex had a peak of 624,000 and an average of around 140,000 players monthly. That's a huge difference. And don't even let me say CSGO's stats. So, when these are your contenders, it's highly unlikely that the finals will be getting any higher on the list. The unique experience the finals brings could be a game changer, but when you compare it to these older and more advanced games, it doesn't stand a big chance. Maybe if one of the companies messes up and releases some cosmetics for a total of $360 and the public realizes how much of a scam it is, then the game can weasel its way in while the original game's player base rejects the game. I do urge the finals to try and take the throne as one of the FPS titans, but where the game is at, both in terms of release and issues, it can't hold up. Again, it's the first season outside of the beta testing, so I know the game can improve over the course of its lifetime. From here on out, I'm going to briefly give my personal thoughts on the game, my likes, dislikes, and possible improvements. There isn't a ton, and I encourage you to stay. However, if you want to leave, now's the perfect opportunity. If you wish to leave, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. If you're still here, thank you. It means a lot to me. I think this next part is a great way to start some conversations. I implore you to give me your own opinions in the comments section below. I read every single comment and try to respond to as many as possible. But for now, let me stop holding you hostage here and let's get on to the opinions. Fundamentally, the finals is a pretty simple game, and I think that for having such a unique concept, it's such a relief, and I find that to be probably the greatest part of the game. I don't have to master a new set of movement tech or brand new recoil patterns into my brain. Besides memorizing what each class weapon and ability does, which isn't hard if you play games like Apex and Valorant, you just have to know how to play the game. It's just a breath of fresh air that, personally, I've needed for a long time. Speaking about movement, I think the overall game movement is amazing. What I mean by that is the character movement abilities. Things like the grapple and dash for light characters, the ground slam and charge for heavy characters. It adds this bit of movement diversity that doesn't add anything unnecessary or complicated. I can't explain it, it just works. It's not a mechanic like in Apex where you have tap strafing, wall bouncing, etc. It's just an ability and ones that aren't hard to use. I think the fast-paced environment of the finals adds a ton of excitement to the game. A lot of the games I play are really slow-moving and tactical, making the gameplay very precise and steady. So, getting into a game where I'm constantly moving and alert, neurons firing at all times, this was such a welcome change of pace that I accepted easily. And if I'm being honest, I really needed this. I feel like I'm constantly engaged with what's happening, which I always appreciate. It's safe to say that I'm never bored during the games I play in, no matter how bad I happen to be playing. Insert lazy segue here. I think the weapon disparities the game has are super cool. There are games where characters have set weapons and abilities, and others where guns can be chosen based on RNG or selection, but rarely do you get to see a game where you not only can change your weapon loadout, but also your character abilities and gadgets. It just adds so much more variety, and you can play so many variations of the same class. It adds so much diversity to the 3 types of characters you can play. Because you only have light, medium, and heavy classes, it makes the game a lot less bland. You can combat people with sniper rifles, swords, throwing knives, and so much more, which adds a lot of excitement and anticipation to the game. I think that when you compare the customization options in this game to others, this game has some of the best options to date. Instead of a single complete character skin, the finals peaks in the customization of characters. You're given the option to change different aspects of your character, such as your physical characteristics, headwear, upper and lower body, back, etc. Basically, you can mix and match outfits to create an in-depth and personal character. For people like me who love customizing characters and making them feel like your own, this is just a plain W. It adds personality to the characters and makes them feel a little more like your own character, which is a great touch. Despite the lack of character faces, the rest of the customization options add another level of diversity and individuality. Finally, I think the in-game announcers are an amazing and unique touch to the game. While games like Apex have an announcer to announce kill leaders, ring closings, etc., the finals goes above and beyond to have the announcers who announce team eliminations, cash outs, steals, etc. Except in the finals, it sounds like real casters like the ones in real gaming tournaments. And not only do they cast their observations, but they also broadcast real information such as cash outs, steals, team eliminations, and so much more. It's such a unique twist to the normal announcers video games have, and it sets the game apart from every other game in that regard alone. Despite there being so many good things about the finals, there are quite a few issues that plague the game. With every yin comes its yang. For every Suguru, there's a Satoru, and unfortunately, this game is no exception. Starting it off strong, let's talk about the heavy class. Frankly, it's too strong. With the only con being the reduced speed the class has, it's essentially an unkillable tank. Having the most health out of all classes and insane shielding abilities, this class just doesn't die. Not to mention, the weapons for this class do so much damage, and they have an insta-kill ability called the RPG-7 that can one-tap light builds. The charge and slam ability the heavy class can do as their special ability also does a ton of damage to anyone who happens to be unfortunate enough to get caught in its grasp. The class is just a powerhouse with barely anything to stop it. It's unfortunate that the heavy class has so many benefits that outweigh the one con it has. The inability to change the reticle much is also something that bothers me. Sure, you can change the outline, thickness, color, opacity, and center dot, but besides the basics, it's pretty lackluster. A lot of other games allow for complex reticles and reticle customization. The finals could benefit from something like this, especially for weapons like the throwing knives, which only use the center dot as the reticle. Overall, the option to customize the reticle to your taste would be huge. Finally, the movement keybinds and combos in the game are unbearable. Normally in games, you have the option to either hold or toggle a movement key, such as crouching or sprinting, and then after holding it, the game resumes the action. Unfortunately, the finals doesn't allow that. Rather, the devs took hold seriously and force you to continuously press down the sprint key. In terms of smooth movement, this makes the finals fall short of other games with decent movement like Apex Legends, which is the king of movement mechanics. It's currently just a hassle to deal with, especially with the way some keybinds are set up. So what changes could the finals make to make their game more engaging and accessible? What can the finals do to improve their game overall? Starting with the basics, there are some simple quality of life changes that should be added to the game. Primarily, there needs to be specific keybinds for certain classes. Comparing this to Valorant, having different class keybinds can allow people to put their ability keys on places they would like instead of having to use the same one. In Valorant, I have a ton of different keybinds for different agents because some abilities feel better on certain keys or mouse buttons. For me, this want translates to the finals as well. Other people may want the option to have class-specific keybinds that would allow players to set up the classes as they see fit. It's actually extremely helpful if you see different classes having different keybinds. Another update I'd like to see is the addition of custom lobbies. While it doesn't seem high on the priority list, a variety of people would be thrilled to see the ability to host custom lobbies. Maybe some want to face their friends, or maybe a streamer wants to do customs with their chat. Either way, it could be good business for the game as well as allow players a little more creative freedom. Speaking of parties, while it isn't much, the game should allow people to exchange who the party leader is. If someone has to leave the game or the current party leader is multitasking, being able to change that could save a lot of time and grief. This isn't high on my priority list, but it would be nice to have. It's just helpful to have the option should the need for it arise, whatever that may be. Finally, the development team should consider adding in sight attachments to the game for guns. Allow players to improve and change the iron sights of their guns by adding new sights. Maybe it counts as a gadget, or maybe it's a gun upgrade you can buy with the in-game VRS. Either way, players should be able to add new sights to their weapons to help them with range, visual clutter, etc. And before people complain about this being a competitive advantage, the same could be said about all weapons and gadgets. If someone doesn't have them all unlocked, that's already a competitive disadvantage. Additional sights wouldn't change that. And that's the end of my list. I have to say, this game has a lot of issues, but also a lot of potential. With the right changes and updates, the finals could reach a new peak. For a game that's been out for just over a month, it's doing incredibly well. Honestly, I can't wait to see how the game changes, and I hope it continues to improve. This game genuinely deserves a larger player base. The ideas behind the game's mechanics are super interesting and unique, and I'm sure so many people appreciate the breath of fresh air the game brings to the team-based shooter genre. And with that, I'm gonna wrap this video up here. The card I mentioned should be on screen. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like and subscribe. Anyways, this has been Schlorpa, and I'm gonna go stare at the new Valorant bundle in the store in a lustful and yearning way.